On behalf of Premier McGuinty and all of my colleagues in the Ontario Legislature, of all parties, I want to tell you I think that one of the few things that we are unanimous on is the importance of life sciences, the industry, the researcher, the incredible benefits to our economy, to our healthcare system, and to the well-being of Ontarians, and indeed people all around the world who benefit from the pioneering research and leadership that comes here. A few people have been mentioned. My deputy, who does all the work, George Ross, and I get all the credit. There's another gentleman here who is one of the few scientists in public life, and he is a colleague, a friend, and my collaborator at the Ministry of Research and Innovation, Dr. Reza Moridi, and I want to acknowledge Reza's extraordinary leadership, and thank God we have a few scientists sitting in the legislature. It is a little overwhelming to look out at an audience like yours today. When you look around this room and you just pause for a second about in the enormous history of this very young country, it would be hard 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago to have this kind of assemblage. We have some of the most competent business leaders and corporate leaders who are building some of the most extraordinary global companies here and recognizing the talent and often generating the talent here in Ontario and the capital for transformational economic development. At the same time, they're going head-to-head with competitors from other parts of the world, in Brazil and in China and in Europe and around the world. And part of our job in Ontario is not just to be a platform for successful companies at home, but to make sure that those companies are successful and competitive around the world. Which means that as we move forward, quite frankly, in life sciences, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and medical devices, we have to become more sophisticated as a government. We can't simply manage under financial pressures on the cost side. If a bandage made out of nanotechnology, which our ministry has funded with some of you in the room, costs 3 times as much as a bandage that is standard, and you look at the work that's being done between Toronto and Edmonton using silver components of the metal silver that has curative and healing powers that are extraordinary, we have to start measuring ourselves by the life cycle benefits, because if one bandage and one visit heals the wound, and that costs more per unit than 5 visits with a less expensive bandage, then we haven't improved our productivity, we haven't restored and supported innovation. And that takes a mind shift that is extraordinary. It really means that we have to, in the private sector and the public sector, if we are going to feed innovation, whether it's groundbreaking research, whether it is the testing and the development and translation of that research into new products, we in the public sector have to set the standard much higher for innovation. And we have to look at the net bottom line and outcome and whether we're actually increasing the value chain in our acquisition and purchasing policies. I learned that in municipal government, that you've got to reconcile things. Very practical, close to the ground kind of things. Yet, yes, the LED lights are more expensive in your capital budget, but they cost about 25% of the cost to operate in your operating budget, and you can spend more money to save money. And that's the part of the challenge for us. It's part of the challenge in the productivity gap we have in Canada with the United States, where our productivity is running at 25% lower than that of the United States. If we do not turn that around, it will cripple our companies, lower our household income, reduce our global competitiveness, make us increasingly irrelevant in global markets, and undermine our ability to fund basic research in science and advance that. I'm also really glad my friend Hazel McCallion is here. I've learned over the years you never go head-to-head with Hazel on anything and expect to come out a winner. I have to tell this little story. I was on Steve Paikin one day, and Steve asked me one day, and Hazel, Mayor McCallion was on the line, and he said, well, remember, you did some extraordinary things when you were mayor of Winnipeg. You cut the size of government by about 27%. You reduced debt by half, and you froze and cut taxes every year you were mayor, and you built 6,000 affordable housing units and rebuilt the downtown and got new museums and some extraordinary things happening. And as I was enjoying my moment in the sun, Mayor McCallion piped in on the line, and she said, "Glen, did you really do that? You cut taxes and reduced debt?" And I said, "Yes, Mayor McCallion, I did." And she said, "Well, you must have taken over a really badly run government." And ever since, we've been fast friends. But that tells you a little bit about how we approach things, I think. And it is really critical that we recognize the extraordinary talent we've got. Ontario's biopharmaceutical sector is among our most research-intensive industries. It is one of the areas that is a leader, not a laggard, in R&D, now employing over 20,000 Ontarians in high-quality, good-paying jobs. I was very sad, and tomorrow I will rise in the House to pay tribute to Dr. Ernest McCullough and Dr. James Till, the fathers of stem cell research. We have had since 1961, with their groundbreaking work, an unbroken chain from the initial discoveries of stem cells. The first identification of cancer cells here in Ontario in 1994 by John Dick. A novel way to create pluripotent stem cells by Andreas Nagy in 2009, to most recently the internationally recognized work of McBadia and the discovery of how to make blood from adult skin cells. So when you look around the room, other than the business leaders I mentioned earlier, we have some of the best scientists in the world. We have people who can take knowledge, science, and evidence and translate it into cures, enabling technologies, solutions to social problems, and translate that knowledge from research to clinical practice to increased knowledge, with the 10,000 scientists now that work in the Ontario healthcare system who can translate it back to the researchers and to the companies. I want to acknowledge the work of people like Dr. Aled Edwards and everyone from Pfizer, GlaxoSmithKline, the extraordinary consortium of companies we have here that have shown global leadership with the Structural Genomics Center in creating an open source collaborative platform that, rather than duplicating, spending hundreds of millions of dollars to deduce which molecules actually have application to take on different pathogens and forms of new medicine, have opened up a collaborative process that is groundbreaking and has been cited internationally as one of the new and unique, and unfortunately almost solely unique, collaborative platforms that's advancing research at an accelerated rate, and then a very constructive way of competing for the intellectual property and its application. We have to, as a government, now respond in our acquisition and purchasing policies to reward that kind of innovation and find a home for it. We have to work along the corridors and the partnerships with Quebec and recognize the regional economy that we have here in bio and life sciences, biotechnology, and pharmaceuticals, and develop a productivity and innovation strategy that rewards people based on the quality of life improvements, the net bottom line, and not the cost so much as the return on investment and the growth in our tax base. Because when you are faced with the kind of challenges that every OECD government is and every subnational government in the world right now is, you are dealing with deficits that are unprecedented for most governments. And it wasn't overspending. We were in balance. We came out of a deficit that we inherited in 2003. A previous government left us about a $6 billion deficit, a $5.6 billion deficit in good times. And we worked out of that, and that was a painful process of managing out of that. We get out of this by growing our tax base and not increasing the tax burden. Because we can't go back and close 28 hospitals, and we cannot cut $500 million again out of our research projects. Why? Because if you cut money there and you close those facilities, you undermine the creative capacity, the creation of knowledge, you undermine your doctors, your scientists, and you undermine the creative capacity and the conditions in which the knowledge is created that creates wealth. And it takes patience. And one of the things our Premier, I think, has taught us, I always say this, it takes less than 5 years to get your payback from an ICT or a digital media investment when we work with the private sector on that. It takes a little less than 10 years to get a clean tech strategy return. So we're doing a partnership right now, the first in North America with Singapore, which is the leaders in water technology and human health through water. In the aftermath of Walkerton, we have emerged as one of the strongest clean tech, clean water centers in that. As we know, when we have challenges with pharmaceuticals in the water system, we have all kinds of interrelated challenges here. That's 10 years. Life sciences is 15 years or more. You have to have patient corporate leadership. You have to have patient public sector leadership. You have to be this in for the long game. You have to set short-term politics aside, and you cannot abandon or walk away from your level of funding. So I have no cuts to my budget. I have no cuts to our R&D budget. A matter of fact, we're working with many of you in the room to find better and increased models with researchers in life sciences to create stronger collaborative platforms for research across Ontario to protect and advance the leadership role that so many of you have played, not only in researching, but in teaching the world how to research more competitively. And we're also committed to And we're also committed to finding new fiscal mechanisms and tax partnerships, which we've already started, to recognize much of the unrecognized research the private sector has put together. The development of a productivity and R&D strategy, the development of an innovation corridor, the advancement of science and technology builds new jobs, and that. We are now adding 60,000 jobs, innovation and knowledge jobs in Ontario per year. 60,000. Our recovery from the depths of the recession 18 months ago is 95%. We are 30 days away from being back in net new job growth in Ontario. Our R&D growth compared to any other state or province or Western European country is 3.6% closing out last year, uncomparable to the 2% in the United States or the 11% job recovery in the US. And we have done that in Ontario, and I say we, I don't mean we as a government, we in this room, the people who have kept their money, their energy, the creativity, and their hope and faith at the forefront of the economy to inspire people. We have done that without the United States. For the first time, we have come out of this as Ontario, as Canadians, proudly, without the United States. There has been no major uptick in exports, in pressure from the United States for more purchasing in an expanding market. So if you don't think we can take on the world, we can do that. I also want to just thank my friends at the federal government, Gary Goodyear. We worked on some very tough decisions together, the HST, which has taken $8.5 billion out of the cost of doing business. It's been part of a $10 billion corporate tax cut package that we have. And I want to thank Gary and his ministry and Minister Clement for their partnership with CFI in removing duplication and bureaucracy in the approvals and the advancement of research. We have had a strongly collaborative relationship, and I want to thank Gary and that. Anyway, there's some very fresh food coming, and my words are starting to sound probably a little stale. So I want to thank all of you. I want to tell you on behalf of our Premier, on behalf of my friends Monty Quinter and Reza Moridi, our government is enthused, inspired by your relentlessness, the discipline of your professions, the imagination of our corporate leadership. And we've made some good moves and we've made some mistakes. I hope that you will find enough humility to learn from all of you and to continue to be inspired. Ontario is a very special place. There is no better time to be a Canadian, and there is no better place to be tonight than here. God bless and keep you all safe. Thank you.